Six people are at a dinner table. The conversation is fine on the surface. Someone's telling a story, someone else is laughing a beat too loud. Then, one person at the table says the quiet part out loud. Wait, are you two okay? Something feels off tonight. Silence. Not because they're wrong, because they're right. And nobody had agreed to say it yet. Within a week, that person gets a reputation. Not smart, not helpful, intense. Reads into things. Makes it weird. Here's the part that doesn't add up. They didn't lie, exaggerate, or start a fight. They noticed something true a few seconds before everyone else was ready to admit it, and got treated like the problem instead of the one who solved it. In this video, you're going to learn 4 things. What's actually happening inside the head of someone who reads a room instantly, why other people's brains treat being accurately read as a kind of danger, why groups quietly punish the person who says the true thing first, and why this pattern almost always traces back to something specific in that person's childhood. By the end, you'll understand why the most perceptive person in the room is so often also the loneliest one in it. Picture 3 ordinary moments. A work meeting. Someone says, "Great idea," about a proposal, and everyone nods. One person in the room catches it, the half-second delay before the smile, the way the great idea came out slightly too fast. They know instantly that the room actually hates the idea, and nobody's going to say so. A family dinner. A parent asks, "How's the new job going?" in a totally normal tone. One sibling answers, "Good, really good," and everyone moves on. Another sibling, the perceptive one, hears the extra beat of silence after "good," sees the fork get set down a little too carefully, and knows the job is not going good at all. A first date. Someone says, "No, I'm having a great time," and most people would take that at face value. One person at that table is already tracking the crossed arms, the phone getting checked twice in 10 minutes, the laugh that doesn't reach the eyes, and they know the date is over before the check arrives. None of this is a party trick. It's not mind reading. It's a brain that's built to grab the small stuff everyone else's brain quietly throws away. The tone under the words, the pause before the sentence, the face before it gets rearranged into the face someone wants you to see. Think about a smoke detector. Most smoke detectors are set to catch actual fires. Some are cheap and oversensitive. They go off from burnt toast, from steam in the bathroom, from nothing at all. Annoying, but at least you can rip the battery out. A perceptive person's attention works like the second kind of detector, except there's no battery to pull. It's just always on, always cross-checking the room for anything that doesn't line up. The words versus the face versus the posture versus what was said 5 minutes ago. Real research backs this up in a strange way. In a study from the 1990s, researchers sat total strangers down for a short, unscripted conversation, filmed it, then afterward asked each person to guess, moment by moment, what the other one had really been thinking and feeling during the chat. Most people guessed right maybe a third of the time. A small group of people, though, guessed right almost every single time, matching the other person's actual private thoughts with eerie precision, off nothing but a face and a voice they'd just met. That second group isn't smarter in general. Their brain has just quietly decided that reading people accurately matters more than almost anything else, usually because at some point it had to. Here's the part most people never think about. Nobody actually wants to be fully seen, all the time, by everybody. Everyone manages a version of themselves in public. The tired version gets a little more energy added on top for the meeting. The hurt version gets a smile stapled over it at the family dinner. This isn't lying exactly, it's just how being around other people works. You get to control what's on display. Now picture someone across the table who can see straight through that display in real time without even trying. It doesn't feel like being understood. It feels like being caught, like someone walked in while you were still getting dressed. There's a reason people say a perceptive friend can make them feel naked in a room full of clothed people. That's not a compliment in their head, that's exposure. So, the discomfort other people feel around a highly perceptive person usually isn't really about that person at all. It's about losing control of the version of themselves they were trying to show. When people feel exposed, they don't usually say so directly. They do one of two things instead. The first is quiet retreat. Conversations with the perceptive person start staying on the surface. Nobody explains why. They just start talking about the weather and the weekend instead of anything that matters, because anything that matters might get seen too clearly. The second is louder, relabeling. The perceptive person becomes too much, too intense, always reading into things, can't just let things be. Notice what that label actually does. It takes the discomfort of being seen and quietly relocates it onto the person who did the seeing. Now the problem isn't, I got caught pretending I was fine. The problem is, you're too sensitive. One sentence, and the exposure disappears, and the blame lands somewhere else entirely. Both reactions do the same job. They put distance between the group and the person who can see what the group is trying not to look at. There's an old experiment that explains why this happens so fast without anyone planning it. Researchers sat people alone in a waiting room and slowly pumped smoke in through a vent. Alone, almost everyone noticed within a couple of minutes and got up to report it. But when the same smoke was pumped into a room with several other people in it, people secretly told beforehand to sit still and say nothing, something strange happened. Most people also sat still. They glanced at the calm faces around them, decided the calm faces must know something they didn't, and stayed put in a room quietly filling with smoke. That's the same wiring at work at the dinner table. One calm face reads as permission for everyone else to stay calm too. So when the perceptive person breaks that, when they're the one person who says, "Wait, something's wrong here," they're not just sharing an observation, they're breaking the group's silent agreement to pretend the smoke isn't there. That's a much bigger social violation than it sounds like from the outside, which is exactly why the reaction to it is so out of proportion to what was actually said. Almost nobody is born reading rooms like this. It's built. Picture a kid in a house where a parent's mood could flip without warning. Fine at breakfast, furious by dinner, with nothing obvious in between to explain the shift. A kid in that house learns fast that waiting for someone to say they're angry is too slow. So they start reading everything else instead. The weight of footsteps on the stairs, how hard a door gets closed, how long it takes for "hey" to get answered. Predicting the mood 2 minutes early stops being a skill and starts being survival. If you can see it coming, you can get out of the way. That radar doesn't switch off once the kid grows up and leaves that house. It just keeps running, pointed now at coworkers, partners, and friends who were never actually dangerous. Reading a slightly too fast, "I'm fine," the exact same way it once read a parent's footsteps. Because as far as that part of the brain is concerned, missing the signal was never worth the risk. Here's the loop this creates. The more accurately someone reads a room, the more often they end up being right about things nobody wanted said out loud. And the more often they're right, the less people tell them things directly. Because why explain yourself to someone who's just going to see through the explanation anyway? So people stop being fully honest with the perceptive person and start being careful around them instead. Which means the person who's best equipped to actually understand what's going on with everyone else is, at the exact same time, the person everyone shares the least with. Full room, and somehow the loneliest chair in it. So go back to that dinner table from the start. 6 people, 1 comment, 1 long silence. Maybe the uncomfortable truth isn't about the person who said it at all. Maybe everyone else at that table already half knew something was wrong. They just hadn't agreed yet to say it out loud. The perceptive one didn't create the tension in that room. They just refused to keep pretending it wasn't there. Which raises the question nobody really wants to sit with. In a room full of people managing exactly what they let each other see, who's actually the one being honest, and who's just better at hiding it?